Jeff Green is the CEO of Longeveron, ticker LGVN. Jeff, good to see you again. Let's bring up your presentation. I'm going to do that right now. There it is. And the floor is yours, sir. Oh, you're on mute, though. Got to unmute yourself. Let's try.
Okay.
There we go. That's better. All right, we got you. We got you back. So let's get those slides back, and we can go right into it.
You can hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you great.
All right, super.
All right.
Okay, thanks. Longeveron, LGVN.
Can we go make it in presentation mode?
On my screen, it's in presentation mode.
Interesting. Okay.
No?
No, not in presentation mode on our screen. I mean on the PowerPoint. That's what I mean on the PowerPoint. If you go, yep, right there. Perfect. Let's see what that did. We just had it before. Anyway, we can still see it though, so let's keep on rolling.
Okay, we are a leader in the cell therapy and regenerative medicine field, clinical stage company with an advanced clinical pipeline for aging-related diseases and life-threatening conditions. And those include aging frailty, Alzheimer's disease, the metabolic syndrome, ARDS, which the previous caller just spoke about, and hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which is the one exception to the rule of sort of chronic aging-related disorders. Our lead product is called Lomecel B. It's a proprietary allogeneic medicinal signaling cell, and it's made from the bone marrow tissue that's donated from young, healthy adults. And we manufacture that here at Longeveron in our GMP cell processing facility. We have significant near-term trial results coming in 3 different trials, a phase 1 program in hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And then we have probably two of the most advanced phase 2 trials in the world right now for an intervention, a regenerative medicine intervention for aging frailty. Both of those trials, both US trials, will have data readouts in the 3rd quarter of this year. And then we intend to initiate 3 new phase 2 trials in the second half of 2021. Alzheimer's disease, aging frailty trial in Japan, and then the phase 2 program for HLHS is beginning. And finally, we have a revenue-generating treatment registry in Nassau, Bahamas, where we can export our product into Nassau under the approval of the Ministry of Health, and eligible participants can get treated there at one of 2 private hospitals that we've partnered with for a variety of indications, and it's considered investigational therapy in the Bahamas as well. So let's talk about cell therapy for chronic diseases. Aging is the -- risk factor for the development of chronic disease and degenerative conditions. And there are specialized cells within all of our bodies that are known as medicinal signaling cells. And these cells are responsible for the repair and regeneration of damaged tissues and organs. The problem is we have an adequate supply of these when we're young, but as we age, there is a decline in not only the number of them, but the potency of them as well. And so we're taking donor-derived MSCs with the purpose of developing a safe and effective off-the-shelf cell therapy to improve healthy lifespan or healthy aging. As you can see on the left, this is what I was talking about. This graph on the left represents the concentration of these specialized cells in our bone marrow when we're young, and you see that precipitous decline as we age. There is stem cell exhaustion, there is cellular senescence or an increase in zombie cells, mitochondrial dysfunction, and this all leads to chronic systemic sterile inflammation. This fall in stem cell potency and number very clearly coincides with the rise of chronic disease and inflammation. So by the age of 65, 50% of us, unfortunately, are going to have at least one chronic disease. So our product is called Lomecel B. We take those cells from young, healthy donors. They're isolated from the bone marrow. They're culture expanded in our GMP clean rooms here in Miami. And then we use a very strict process for testing and selecting these cells to create the doses that we're using in our clinical trials. So we have had an excellent safety profile with over 300 patients treated to date. These are simple to freeze and store prepare and administer. It's about a 40-minute outpatient infusion. They can be delivered either systemically or locally. They home to sites of tissue damage and inflammation, and they're not perceived by the host as foreign because they're considered immunoprivileged or immunoevasive, and they have a very long half-life, cryogenically preserved for many years. These cells home to sites of tissue damage, and they promote healing and tissue repair through a secretory effect, it's called a paracrine effect. The reason why they're called medicinal signaling cells is because of this multimodal mechanism of action in the microenvironment. Once they're transplanted into the host, they release bioactive molecules that are anti-inflammatory and stimulate the repair mechanism. There are exosomes or cargo vesicles released that have chemical cargoes in them that are bioactive molecules. And then there are interactions between both the endogenous stem cells as well as the somatic cells, and all of it combines to have a beneficial repair effect on the microenvironment where there's damaged tissue and inflammation. I'm going to jump to some of the research program. I'm going to highlight some of the research that we're doing at Longeveron in these fields of neurodegeneration, aging and immunosenescence, and the congenital heart defects. This is a snapshot of the company's pipeline. So as you can see, we have a very robust program ongoing, particularly in the United States, with many trials transitioning from phase 1 to phase 2 or concluding phase 2. So we're deep into the clinical pipeline, and these transitions are value-creating events that are happening with this company. As you can see, we have a very robust aging frailty program, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but it's ongoing in both the United States and Japan. We've just recently finished the phase 1 program for Alzheimer's disease, and that's some very exciting data in phase 1, and it's transitioning to phase 2. You can see here we have had almost every single program we've ever launched in the United States has had some form of extramural funding provided by a state or federal granting agency or a nonprofit organization like the Alzheimer's disease. And just down below on this slide, as you can see, is the program in the Bahamas, where we are permitted to treat eligible patients with frailty, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and osteoarthritis. We're using cell therapy in Alzheimer's disease to target neuroinflammation. It's very obvious that a chronic pro-inflammatory state appears requisite in Alzheimer's disease. And in preclinical animal models that are published in the literature, we see that MSCs can cross the blood-brain barrier. They do result in a decrease in the pro-inflammatory cytokines and an increase in the anti-inflammatory cytokines. There's also evidence to suggest they improve immune functioning, they promote neurogenesis, and they improve endothelial or blood vessel functioning. So our goal is to explore whether targeting inflammation may prevent and or reverse the clinical progression of Alzheimer's disease. So we had very positive phase 1 results. In the trial that was designed to show safety, it was very safe and well tolerated. But what was striking is that in the one of the assessments of cognitive decline, which you see on the screen here to your right, this graph, the mini mental state exam, we saw with a low dose Lomecel-B had a slowed progression of decline of cognitive function.
Jeff, I'm going to jump in here because I don't think your slides are updating on our screen.
Okay.
So can you try stop sharing, and then we'll reshare it, and let's see if that does a trick. Because sure. I hear you, but I don't see what you're referring to.
Okay. So you can see me.
I can see you.
Okay, I'm going to hit the share button at the bottom.
Yep, and then you want to share your full screen, not just the individual file. Let's see if that does the trick.
Okay. Did that work?
Now we're in business.
You can see my screen?
Yep, we're in business.
So none of the slides advanced throughout the last?
No, just the last couple.
Okay. Well, this is an important slide, so I'm glad you fixed that for me. So this green line is the change in mini mental state exam score for the low dose Lomecel-B treated group compared to the placebo group, which is the red line. So we see a statistically significant difference in change in score at 13 weeks and again at 39 weeks in favor of Lomecel-B, where the placebo group declined nearly 6 points by the end of the year, while the Lomecel-B treated group largely stayed, fairly flat until getting towards 39 to 52 weeks. So a small study, of course, and not designed for efficacy or powered for efficacy, but striking nonetheless in terms of showing a slowed progression of disease, and I think very supportive of the fact that we are transitioning this program into a phase 2 trial. Talking about Lomecel-B for aging frailty, our goal here really is to improve health, independence, and quality of life. Frailty is an age-associated decline in reserve and function across multiple physiologic symptoms, and it's characterized by weakness and slowing down and weight loss and sarcopenia, low activity levels. And you can see this graph. There's the normal aging, and you start to see just a gradual decline in performance. But then there's this subgroup over the age of 65 who age very poorly and enter a period of frailty and are on a fast path to disability. And so geriatricians, the subspecialty of geriatric medicine really exists for the treatment of frailty, for the treatment and prevention of frailty. They do not have anything in the toolbox to manage this syndrome. So this little snapshot is from the American Geriatric Society, and it is the guidance document that's used for management of frailty. And you can see that the only thing that they recommend once you're clinically apparently frail is, unfortunately, it's just a lifestyle modification. They're telling you to go to your physical therapist and go see a nutritionist. There just isn't anything available for these doctors to treat this issue. And you've got over 8 million people in the United States alone who are considered frail, with another 24 million who are showing early signs of frailty. We have a very robust program trying to work on a solution for aging frailty, and we're in 2 of the largest elderly markets in the world, US and Japan. So on the left side of the screen in the center, we have these 2 US phase 1 or phase 1/2 and 2B trials that have just completed in the first quarter and are going to have data readouts in the third quarter of this year. So in these 2 trials, the objectives were, can Lomecel-B improve vaccine response, influenza vaccine response in aging frailty patients? And in the larger 150 subject trial is, can Lomecel-B improve exercise tolerance and mobility? Why are we choosing exercise and tolerance and mobility? It's because we know that those endpoints are predictive of clinical outcomes like mortality and hospitalization. So the slower and the worse you get with physical function, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to have a poorer clinical outcome. And the opposite exists if you start to improve. So those are the endpoints we're measuring in our trials. And then finally, we have been approved by the Japanese PMDA to initiate a phase 2 trial in Japan for the same indication, and that's expected to start in the second half of this year. And it's largely the same design as the one we're working on in the United States. Just a snapshot of some preliminary data we got out of our phase 1 influenza vaccine trial in frailty patients. We took some pooled data from the phase 1 and what was available for the phase 2. And what I want to show you here, and what I want to point out, is that this is the result of the 6-minute walk distance test. How far can you walk in 6 minutes in meters? And you can see that they're very close together at screening and baseline. The blue line is Lomecel-B treated patients. By 6 months, you've got approximately a 75-meter difference in patients treated with Lomecel-B compared to patients treated with placebo. And so again, we're enthusiastic about this because it is the primary endpoint of our larger phase 2 trial, and it's also predictive of clinical outcomes in this patient population. Switching away for a second on aging-related conditions, we have a program for a very rare pediatric congenital heart defect known as hypoplastic left heart syndrome. In this situation, it's a congenital heart defect that affects about 1,000 babies a year. There is no treatment for it other than reconstructive surgery. It's 100% fatal without surgery and still highly fatal at 3 years with surgery. So We are injecting Lomecel-B directly into the right ventricle during the second surgery, which happens about age 2 to 3 years old, during what's called the Glenn operation. The point here is to see if we can an injection of Lomecel-B can repair and regenerate cardiac tissue and therefore improve the ventricular function of these babies in order to help them survive and keep them away from what is often the outcome, which is a heart transplant. So in that program, we have completed phase 1, and it was very well tolerated with no serious major cardiac events reported. And the data, the exploratory efficacy data from that trial is coming out in this quarter. The phase 2 trial is nearly underway. It's being sponsored by the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. And we expect to initiate treatment in that trial early in the second half of 2021. So in terms of near-term catalysts, you can see here the blue circles are related to the release of data. So we've got 3 more data releases over the next 2 quarters. And then the green circles are related to the approximate initiation of 3 phase 2 trials that are going to go on in the United States and Japan. We have a robust intellectual property and barrier to competition program. We have a suite of company-owned patent applications that are related to allogeneic MSCs and their methods of use primarily. We have a proprietary manufacturing process that we have in-house here. We do not outsource our manufacturing, and we never have. We have a suite of licensed patent applications related to a subpopulation of MSCs, which we would put into context with what Lomecel-B, this would maybe be a next generation Lomecel-B. And then, of course, we would take advantage of any type of statutory exclusivity that would be offered related to a BLA approval or an orphan drug approval that would be offered to us as part of our development program. So in summary, we have cell-based therapies with a well-developed MSC product that's treated over 300 subjects thus far. The focus is on aging-related chronic disease and life-threatening conditions. We have our own state-of-the-art GMP facility, very stringent manufacturing and quality control, safe and well-tolerated to date, and very good supportive early clinical efficacy data that's now feeding a robust clinical pipeline. We generate revenue through our Bahamas treatment program, and there are, as you just saw, significant value inflection milestones over the next several quarters. And I did not get into our management team. We have a very solid, proven executive scientific and manufacturing group here at Longeveron. And I want to thank you for listening to the story.
All right, Jeff Green, CEO of Longeveron. Jeff, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.